IV. George 1820–1830. To truly appreciate the events and changes that unfolded during the 1820s, we must first understand the historical backdrop against which this transformative decade played out. The 18th century had come to a close, marked by the long and eventful reign of King George III, whose rule had spanned 6 tumultuous decades. The turn of the 19th century ushered in a period of profound social, political, and economic shifts, setting the stage for the 1820s. The late 18th century had seen Britain embroiled in global conflicts, most notably the American Revolutionary War and the Napoleonic Wars, which had far-reaching consequences on both the domestic and international fronts. These wars drained the British treasury and significantly reshaped the geopolitical landscape. With the conclusion of these conflicts, the British Empire found itself at a crossroads, facing new challenges and opportunities. As the 19th century dawned, George IV ascended to the throne of the United Kingdom in January 1820, following the death of his father, George III. George IV, previously Prince Regent due to his father's incapacitation, was a figure who inspired fascination and controversy in equal measure. His reign was marked by a stark departure from the austerity of his father's rule, as he was known for his extravagant lifestyle, appreciation of the arts, and love of opulence. George IV's personal life was also marked by turbulence, particularly his ill-fated marriage to Queen Caroline, which garnered significant public attention and led to a rift within the royal family. This troubled marriage symbolized some of the personal and political challenges that characterized his reign. The 1820s stand as a pivotal decade in British history. It was a period of profound change, marked by the convergence of several critical factors. The Industrial Revolution, which had been steadily transforming the nation since the late 18th century, was now in full swing, reshaping the economy, society, and urban landscapes. Politically, the era saw the continued evolution of parliamentary democracy, as well as the emergence of key figures who would leave an indelible mark on British politics. Furthermore, the 1820s witnessed a cultural renaissance with the rise of the Romantic movement, which found expression in literature, art, and architecture. It was an era that saw the construction of iconic landmarks like the Royal Pavilion in Brighton, showcasing the fusion of artistic creativity and architectural innovation. In this decade, George IV's reign both reflected and influenced these sweeping changes. His indulgent lifestyle and patronage of the arts left a lasting imprint on the culture of the time, while his political maneuvering played a role in the unfolding political landscape. The transition from the rule of George III to George IV was a pivotal moment in British history. King George III, who had reigned for nearly 6 decades, was a significant figure known for his assertive style of monarchy and the challenges that Britain faced during his reign, including the American Revolutionary War and the Napoleonic Wars. By the time of his death in January 1820, he was suffering from a debilitating mental illness, which had necessitated a regency. The Regency crisis, which began during George III's illness in the early 1810s, set the stage for George IV's eventual ascension to the throne. The Regency Act of 1811 declared George IV as Prince Regent, granting him the powers of the monarch while his father was incapacitated. This period of regency was marked by a unique blend of political maneuvering, as influential figures, including George's own wife, Queen Caroline, vied for power and influence. The Regency era was also characterized by the early stirrings of political reform and societal change, setting the tone for the transformative decade that would follow. George IV was notorious for his extravagant and flamboyant lifestyle. He had a penchant for luxurious clothing, opulent parties, and grand architectural projects, all of which came at great expense to the crown and the British treasury. His lavish spending and decadence earned him both admiration and criticism from the public and the political establishment. His extravagance would have a lasting impact on the perception of the monarchy and its role in British society. One of the most publicized and controversial aspects of George IV's early reign was his tumultuous marriage to Queen Caroline of Brunswick. Their marriage had been strained from the beginning, with accusations of infidelity and incompatibility on both sides. George IV sought to divorce Caroline, but the ensuing legal and public battles surrounding the royal couple became a major scandal. Caroline's popularity with the public and her assertion of her rights as queen consort created a significant challenge for George IV and the monarchy as a whole. The issue of Caroline's treatment and her position within the royal family would have far-reaching consequences on both a personal and political level. The 19th century marked a significant evolution in the role of the monarchy within the British political system. While the monarch still held considerable symbolic and ceremonial power, the era saw the continuation of a constitutional monarchy that had been gradually developing over the preceding centuries. The political landscape had been shaped by events like the Glorious Revolution of 1688 and the subsequent passage of the Bill of Rights and Act of Settlement, which curtailed the monarch's authority and established a constitutional framework. By the 19th century, the monarch's powers were largely symbolic, and the day-to-day governance of the nation was carried out by elected officials in Parliament. In this constitutional framework, the monarch's role was to provide stability, symbolize the unity of the nation, and act as a ceremonial figurehead. However, George IV's extravagant lifestyle, political maneuvering, and the scandals surrounding his personal life, such as his troubled marriage with Queen Caroline, drew attention to the monarchy and raised questions about its relevance in a rapidly changing society. Catholic emancipation, 1829, one of the most significant political reforms of the era. Catholic emancipation allowed Catholics to hold public office and sit in Parliament, ending centuries of discrimination and sectarian tensions. Reform acts and movements. While major parliamentary reform movements and the Reform Act of 1832 lay just beyond the scope of the 1820s, the decade saw growing pressure for political reform. Advocates called for broader suffrage, parliamentary representation, and an end to rotten boroughs. Slavery Abolition Act, 1833, though passed shortly after the 1820s, this act was part of a broader movement against slavery, with significant groundwork laid during this period. The Industrial Revolution was in full swing during the 1820s, fundamentally reshaping both British society and its economy. This transformative period was characterized by the shift from agrarian and handcraft-based economies to industrial and manufacturing ones. Some key aspects of the Industrial Revolution's impact during this time included economic transformation. Factories, powered by steam engines, water wheels, and later, improved machinery, became the centers of production. This led to significant increases in productivity, as well as the concentration of workers in urban areas. Urbanization. The growth of factories and industries fueled mass urbanization, as people from rural areas moved to cities in search of work. This migration brought about profound changes in living conditions, infrastructure, and social dynamics in urban centers. Social changes. The Industrial Revolution brought about new social classes, including the industrial working class and a burgeoning middle class. It also led to changes in family dynamics, as work often took individuals away from their homes and into factories. Urbanization was a significant consequence of the Industrial Revolution. Cities like Manchester, Birmingham, and London expanded rapidly, often without adequate planning or infrastructure. This led to crowded, unsanitary conditions in urban slums, which in turn prompted social reform movements and calls for improved living conditions. Technological advancements were at the heart of the Industrial Revolution's success. Innovations like the spinning jenny, power loom, and steam engine revolutionized textile production. Meanwhile, developments in transportation, such as the locomotive and steamship, transformed the movement of goods and people. These technological leaps had profound effects on society, making goods more accessible and travel more efficient. George IV himself played a notable role in the promotion of the arts during the 1820s. He was a patron of the Royal Academy of Arts and had a particular affinity for the neoclassical and Regency architectural styles. One of his most enduring artistic contributions was the Royal Pavilion in Brighton, an architectural masterpiece characterized by its exotic and oriental design. The pavilion was a testament to George IV's enthusiasm for art and his influence on the architectural trends of the era. The 1820s, therefore, were a period of profound social and cultural change. The Industrial Revolution reshaped the economic and social fabric of Britain, while the Romantic movement fostered a profound shift in artistic and literary expression. George IV's patronage of the arts and his own architectural endeavors exemplified the era's appreciation for creativity, aesthetics, and individualism. These cultural developments would continue to leave their mark on British society well beyond the 1820s. The Regency style, also known as the Regency era, emerged during the early 19th century and was heavily influenced by the tastes and preferences of George IV during his regency and reign. This architectural and design movement was characterized by several distinctive features and innovations. Neoclassical inspiration. The Regency style drew heavily from classical Greek and Roman architecture, favoring features such as columns, pilasters, and pediments. However, it often incorporated these elements in a more refined and elegant manner than earlier neoclassical styles. Elegance and opulence. The Regency style was known for its sense of refinement and opulence. Elaborate decorative details, luxurious materials, and a sense of grandeur were hallmarks of Regency design. Exotic influences. George IV's travels and interests in foreign cultures, particularly the Orient, infused the Regency style with exotic elements. This led to the use of motifs like chinoiserie, Islamic patterns, and Egyptian motifs in design. The Royal Pavilion in Brighton stands as one of the most iconic examples of the Regency style and George IV's architectural vision. This magnificent palace was designed as a seaside retreat and showcases the fusion of architectural influences, including Indian and Chinese design elements. George IV's influence on architecture and design during the Regency era left an indelible mark on British cultural history. The Regency style, characterized by its elegance, opulence, and fusion of architectural influences, found its zenith in iconic creations like the Royal Pavilion in Brighton, a testament to the King's enduring impact on the aesthetics of the 19th century. As the 1820s progressed, George IV's health began to deteriorate significantly. One of the most notable health issues he faced was obesity, a condition that had plagued him for much of his life. His excessive indulgence in food and drink, along with his sedentary lifestyle, contributed to his weight gain. Obesity brought about various health complications, including heart problems, joint issues, and breathing difficulties. These health challenges hindered his ability to carry out his duties as king effectively and also impacted his overall quality of life. George IV's declining health and personal issues, including his troubled marriage to Queen Caroline, led to his withdrawal from public life during the latter part of his reign. His reign, which had begun with much anticipation and celebration, saw a gradual shift from the active engagement in affairs of state to a more passive and ceremonial role. The king's withdrawal from public duties left a void in governance, and the government was increasingly run by his ministers and advisors. This shift had significant implications for the political landscape of the time, as it raised questions about the effectiveness and relevance of the monarchy in the face of pressing national issues. In the midst of his health struggles and withdrawal from public life, George IV's reign came to an end with his death on June 26, 1830. His passing marked the end of an era, both politically and culturally. Upon his death, his younger brother, William, Duke of Clarence, succeeded him as King William IV. A new monarch, William IV, unlike his older brother, was known for his more straightforward and less extravagant lifestyle. His reign would be characterized by a shift in royal image and style. Political continuity. While there was a change in the monarchy, there was relative political stability, as William IV retained many of George IV's ministers, including the Duke of Wellington as Prime Minister. Era of Reform. William IV's reign would witness the intensification of political reform movements, including the push for parliamentary reform and other societal changes. The Reform Act of 1832, though enacted under William IV's successor, Queen Victoria, was a reflection of the ongoing reform efforts. The transition from George IV to William IV marked the end of the Regency era and the beginning of a new chapter in British history. It also represented a shift in the monarchy, as William IV sought to project a more modest and relatable image compared to his extravagant and troubled brother. The political and social changes that had been brewing throughout the 1820s would continue to shape the trajectory of Britain in the years that followed, making the end of George IV's era a pivotal moment in the nation's history. George IV's reign is a subject of complex historical assessment. It was a period characterized by both personal excess and political and cultural influence. Evaluating his reign involves considering the positive and negative aspects of his rule. Personal excess and scandals. George IV's extravagant lifestyle, high spending, and personal scandals, including his tumultuous marriage with Queen Caroline, earned him widespread criticism and public disdain. His personal behavior tarnished the image of the monarchy, leading some to question the relevance of the institution in the face of such excess. Influence on architecture and culture. On a more positive note, George IV's patronage of the arts and his architectural projects, such as the Royal Pavilion in Brighton, left a lasting impact on British culture. His enthusiasm for the Regency style and exotic design elements contributed to a period of artistic and architectural innovation that continues to be celebrated today. Political context. George IV's reign was marked by political stability, particularly in comparison to the turbulent years of the French Revolution and Napoleonic Wars. His governments, led by figures like Lord Liverpool and the Duke of Wellington, managed to maintain relative peace and stability in Britain during a period of significant global change. The monarchy's role. The era underscored the importance of the monarchy adapting to changing societal norms and expectations. George IV's personal excess and scandals emphasized the need for a more restrained and dignified monarchy that could better represent the values and aspirations of the nation. Cultural fusion. The Regency era demonstrated the power of cultural fusion and cross-pollination. The blending of neoclassical, exotic, and oriental influences in architecture and design exemplified the era's creative spirit and willingness to embrace diverse sources of inspiration. The interplay of personal and political. George IV's reign showcased how personal behavior and political leadership can intersect and affect each other. His personal excesses had political implications, as they led to criticism and calls for reform within both his court and the broader society. In conclusion, the decade of 1820 to 1830, marked by George IV's reign, was a period of profound change and cultural flourishing. It left a lasting imprint on British society, politics, and culture, reflecting the broader transformations of the 19th century. George IV's legacy is a multifaceted one, reflecting both the challenges and the creative spirit of his era. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it informative, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this in the future.